Okay, in this presentation, we're going to look at basic tables. So in this lesson, we're going to understand how to use the table element. We will understand how to add borders. And finally, we're going to understand how to specify table headers. Okay, so table is extremely useful for web designers, and it really allows us to organize information in a uniform way. Okay, and they're really good, obviously, for presenting data, and the data gets presented in rows and columns, which makes it really simple and simple for us to understand. And one of the best things about it is because of just the way the tables are used in HTML, it allows allows us to format the tables consistently and to make them look good, okay, and make them look good rather easily. Now, what tables are not used for, which is what's explaining down here, tables are not used or should not be used to style or lay out a web page. Okay, that's very important to understand. So a table is used to give information, to organize data, not to lay out a web page. Okay, first let's understand this. A column goes up and down. Okay, so this particular table has two columns and 1, 2, 3 rows. Okay, so 2 columns and 3 rows. All right, we have 3 elements we're going to talk about right now. The first element is the table element. And the table element tells the browser, hey, the data the stuff nested in here has to do with tables. So here you have a table element or opening tag and the closing table tag. Okay? And nested inside of those is a bunch of script that deals with tables. And I'll talk about that here in a minute. So the table tags, opening and closing tags, tells the browser there is a table inside of these tags. Now, let's look first at the TR element. And that tells the browser these are individual rows. Okay? So for instance, this particular table has 1, 2, 3 rows. Okay? In a row, it's going to span the entire width of a table. Okay? So say you have 940 pixels available for this table. That row will span 940 pixels. All right? You may not understand what that means quite yet, but you will. So a table row is going to create each individual table. The TD element, or the table data element, it creates each individual cell within that row. Okay? So in the case here to the left in the yellow box, we have each row has 1, 2 cells. 1, 2 cells. 1, 2 cells. Okay? So think about it. We have a table. This table has 1, 2, 3 rows, and each row has 2 cells in it. If we were to delete one of these cells, then that third row would only have 1 cell in it. All right. Hopefully we understand that. Let's move on. Okay. So here's an example with some words already inside of it. Okay? And you can see that the first row has 2 cells, and there's state in capital. So there you see state in capital. Row 1. Row 2 has 2 cells in it, and that's Arizona and Phoenix. Finally, row 3 has 2 cells in it, which is Georgia and Atlanta. There you go. And that's our table. Now, obviously the table doesn't look great. It's not, it's not very fancy, but we can improve on that using some other things. So, first thing we can do is we can add in a border. All right. Now, let me before I get into this, let me kind of give you a little warning here. Using this border attribute is not industry standard. What do I mean? I mean by that is it's not acceptable to put the border attribute and create a border this way. Okay? So that while we're going to learn it, and then we're going to not use it after a while. Okay? So we have the border attribute up there with the attribute value of 1. So it's going to create a border around all of the cells, a 1 pixel border. Okay? So now you can see this looks a little bit more like a table. All right. But the next thing we can do is we can use something called the table header. And a table header is exactly what it sounds like. It creates headers at the top of the table. So let's take a look at the code here. You can see that the TD element has been replaced by these TH elements, or the table header elements. So all that happens is the browser understands that TH, or the table header element, it understands it and just styles it or makes it look a little bit different. And if you look here, you can see that state and capital, they're each kind of bolded or emphasized a little bit. So that's what the table header element does. It kind of bolds the words. Okay? It will also center the text, which is kind of cool. Okay. Just so you know, you can actually place the table header elements. You can use them farther down. So let's say that you had a table with 2 sections. All right. And I'm just going to kind of draw it here. So you use the table header element here. You can actually use it again down here to bold and center that stuff down there. So it doesn't have to be reserved for the very top of the data or of the table. You can use it wherever you want, really. All right. Finally, talk quickly about styling. As I said, to style a table, you can use the border attribute. All right. However, I said it is not industry standard. It is not acceptable to do it that way. So in our next lesson, I will start to introduce styling, and or CSS, I should say. And CSS really helps us to create something that looks more visually appealing than just some words and pictures on a page. So that's what we'll talk about in our next lesson.